After a long break, I'm actually working on this again. Right now, believe it or not, in Pennsylvania, it's 110 degrees outside today. So I turned the air conditioner on yesterday, and it's actually somewhat livable in here. I think it's like 75. Could use to be a little bit cooler, but I guess I'll deal with it comparatively to the outside temperature. So the motor's in, as per the last video, motor and trans, securely mounted and such. Since you last saw, I did drill the mounting holes for the trans cross member, so they're good. Everything's in. So I figure I'm just gonna work from like the rear forward. That just means I'm doing the most annoying things first, and then eventually I'll get to the like easy under hood stuff. So I dropped the original gas tank out. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I ripped the whole drive shaft out. So I'm going to do the same thing we did with the checker here because it worked out pretty good and doesn't shake. This is a two-piece drive shaft. It's commonly used in long wheelbase trucks like this. If this was a short bed, it'd have a one-piece. If it was a four-wheel drive, it'd have a one-piece because you'd have the transfer case behind the transmission taking up room. So that end goes to the transmission that went to the old manual transmission. And then that bearing there goes to another cross member under the truck, and then you have another U-joint, and then that goes to rear. Right here you have the slip, so like this part slides. You have a little bit of movement here. From here to here does not slip. It's a fixed mount, and this section of the drive shaft here will always stay level. This never really moves. You get a little bit of movement in the motor, but that's it. It's not actually traveling up and down like the rest of the drive shaft is. So this is the one I'm going to shorten. This I can leave the same length because I didn't affect anything down there. So same thing as the checker. All we're going to do is shorten it, and I'm going to put a new yoke in it. Now a lot of guys you see will actually grind this weld off here and pop the yoke out, and you can actually reuse it once you shorten the drive shaft, because this actually lips inside the drive shaft quite a bit and it's welded on. That's what keeps it straight. But we tried that with the checker. We ruined this. Even though we just barely ground it until it separated, you lost like the lip that this sat on. And I mean, it took us like an hour to cut this out. So Corey figured out that they're like dirt cheap online, and it's really not worth even wasting your time trying to reuse the old one. Okay, so first on the agenda today is going to be the drive shaft. Now, I had stuff filmed for this, but the memory card in the camera went meh and died, or got corrupted, or I don't even know, but I lost everything. But you didn't miss too much. All I did was I measured basically how much I had to cut off the factory drive shaft, because the 4-speed manual that was in is actually much shorter than the 4L80. I think it was something like 8 inches I had to cut off. So this is the side here that goes towards the transmission, and that's the side that goes towards the rear. It's a two-piece drive shaft, has a carrier bearing in the middle. The front shaft does not, well actually it does, but it doesn't compress here. It's solidly mounted to the transmission on the SM465 that was in the truck. So there's no slip in the back of the transmission, it's just fixed. The slip's actually in the center of the drive shaft, so it makes things kind of easier. So I cut it off in the bandsaw, got this perfectly straight, and what I was going to do was I was going to do what we did on the checker, where after we saw that we butchered the yoke in the drive shaft, Corey went on Amazon and just bought a new one. So I bought a new one. It's a 1350 U-joint. This is a 2.5 inch yoke, 2.5 inch inside diameter drive shaft. This didn't fit. What went wrong? For some reason that's still lost to me, this is for a 2.5 inch outside diameter drive shaft. I still don't know why they're measuring something in an outside diameter when this goes inside of it, because the internal dimension has no bearing on the outside dimension. When you measure pipe, there's an inside diameter and an outside diameter. So why would you measure something outside when this goes inside? But yeah, it just falls in. Move it all around, it's junk. So I had to go back to the original plan and actually save the original yoke, because when I looked again I couldn't find this size yoke. So, sent out to my friend with the old piece of drive shaft on it. He put it in his lathe and cut it down. So now it'll go in. The only thing is, these are a pretty tight fit. So I'm going to have to actually heat the drive shaft up and beat this in and hopefully get it straight when it's all said and done and get it phased right with the other halves of the drive shaft. Okay, so when I worked on this like a month ago and cut the end off and shortened it and everything, I had a reference mark on here which was also on the yoke. That's since been lost. So I had to make sure I keep this in phase. What that means is if you see this yoke over here, you can see it's vertical, the outside clips, or this drive shaft's outside clips are facing up. This has to be the same way, exactly. If it's tilted, the U-joints won't work properly. They won't actually like bend as the drive shaft goes. They'll basically just shake itself apart or bind up. It won't work at all. So this has to be in exactly the same plane that that one is. So I think the way that we're going to do this, instead of trying to draw a line or something, I'm just going to put this level on this yoke, and I already pre-balanced it like I was cooking a roast on a cooking program. And these magnets are holding the drive shaft, so if I put this in here and level it the same way, then it should be good to go. It should be straight. Well, I climbed under the truck to install this to test fit it before I final welded it, and it's a good thing I did, because when I made all the measurements, I measured for that yoke, which is shorter. So when I put this yoke in, the drive shaft's an inch too long. So at least it's too long, not too short. So I need to cut another inch off this tube, like almost exactly an inch, and then repeat that process and it should be good. Remember, always wear the right PPE. Well, I'm almost ready to put the drive shaft back in the truck, but first I have to address the transmission yoke. This one had a fixed yoke. Well, I guess the truck does too, but I don't have the bolt for it. So this was just actually bolted in the back of the transmission. Normally, like, they slide in and out with the drive shaft, but like I said, the drive shaft slide is actually at the carrier bearing on this one. So there's normally a big washer and bolt that just blasts this into the output shaft of the transmission. Well, I'm not going to use that. Well, it's not going to go anywhere anyway because it's, you know, kind of held in the truck. So I have to weld this hole up or else I'm going to get trans fluid out of it. So I'm just going to take this washer here. I'm going to fill the hole first because it's on a brass spatula here, or bronze, or whatever it is. Weld won't stick to it. So I'll fill the hole up and then I'll weld it into that, and then I'll have a sealed up yoke. Do you guys like gratuitous welding shots while I'm running out of welding gas? Well, you're in luck. Well, I got the drive shaft back in. Just ran and got some new nuts and bolts for that because the old ones were kind of gross. There it is, stock drive shaft back in the truck, now automatic and with the LS. Well, here's another reason why swapping these trucks is so easy, because GM kind of did the fuel system for you. The new tank I have here is from an 87 Squarebody pickup, whatever you want to get it out of. 87 through 91, they still use this body style. Most of the body styles changed by 88. But if you look up an 87, you're guaranteed to get this body style, and it had throttle body fuel injection. So this is actually a factory fuel injection tank. It has a sump in it that I'll show you in a second. It has the proper big opening here. And you can also get a complete fuel pump, like so, with the float, sending unit, everything on it, for the 87. So now you have your complete drop-in modular fuel system. The only thing you'd have to change in this application is this fuel pump is a throttle body fuel pump for the Chevy throttle body injection. So this pump only puts out about 15 psi because those systems were regulated down to 12. So we're just going to swap this pump out, plop it in the tank, and it's good to go. I just have to run the lines up to the engine. I just cut the these band clamps off of the TBI pump here. I have to dissect this sending unit, take the TBI pump off, and then put the new high pressure pump I have on it. So we'll see how this goes. Pump I got is right here. It's a Walboro 400. Got it off Amazon. If I still have the link, I'll put it in the description below. And you have to order an installation kit, which doesn't come with the pump. This just comes in the box, that's it. So this gives you your strainer, your wiring connectors, a little piece of hose, all that goodness. So now let me see if I can try and hack this into the Squarebody sending unit here. Pump actually fits in there pretty good. I just put a hose clamp on there to secure it because it won't really sit in this little seat like the old one did. But yeah, it's not going anywhere. Socks fits. Shouldn't come off. Just gotta tighten these down and do the wiring on it. Now I'm not sure how all this is going to show up on camera, but one of the big reasons for using this gas tank is because it has a sump in it. So you can see in there. There we go, that's pretty good. There's a little pan that the fuel pump sits in that a carbureted tank normally does not have. And the reason for this is it allows the fuel pump to always be sucking up fuel so it doesn't become uncovered when you hit a bump. On a carbureted engine, this doesn't matter for the most part because you have a reserve fuel capacity in the fuel bowl. So if the pump's not pumping fuel for a few seconds at a time, you still have, I don't know, half a quart in the carburetor maybe. So you know, it's not really an issue. But EFI system, you'll basically suck air right up to the motor almost instantly. The lines don't hold that much and there's no fuel reserve in the motor. So what that little tank, or the little pan, wow, I'm getting this all screwed up. What the little pan does is when you go over bumps, go around a corner, accelerate, decelerate, it keeps the fuel around the pump. So that's the purpose of it. And so if you just slap a fuel pump, an EFI fuel pump in a carbureted tank, it won't have that and you might have some kind of fuel sloshing, starvation issues if you don't keep the tank full enough. So that's why it's easy enough to just buy this tank. This is really cheap. It's a Spectra tank. I think it was way under $100. And the sender wasn't that much either. Also made by Spectra. This is an 18-gallon or 19-gallon tank. There's two different tank sizes. Oh, there goes the light. There's also a 16-gallon. So this is the larger of the two. So it has a longer length, same width. And then, there's your sending unit. You can get these like any auto parts store. So let me just slam that pump in there now. And then as soon as my tank hangers are done cooking, I'll be able to put the tank back in the truck. Well, good. It still fits with the bigger pump in it. Wouldn't that suck? So nice using all new stuff, not having to deal with rusty ass lock rings that don't fit. It's locked in, ready to go. Well, I got bamboozled on my fuel tank plans here. I got the straps on, which sucked terribly. I forgot how bad these were to do. For those not familiar on these square bodies, there's like a steel support that bolts onto the frame. It's this black piece here. And then these metal straps are sold separately, actually. Originally, they're pop riveted on, so you have to grind the rivets off, bolt these on. I don't know which way they were supposed to go anymore. They went on, I went on one way, went on the other way. It doesn't really seem to matter. Well, anyway, these come flat, and you have to stretch these up around, poke them through, and then there's a nut on them. And the problem is with the old ones, they like never come apart, because once that gets rusty, like it's a joke. You're never going to get that off again. This one's easy. They're actually both the same length, which is also hilarious because the tank's grossly different sized. And then you have to pretty much blow your spleen out pushing this one through. And that's actually like beating it around to try and get it to bend sharper. But anyway, I can't put this in right now because I'm screwed. Because my 73 fuel neck with zip tie still attached. Well, I went and ordered a new hose for it from like LMC truck. There's a filler neck hose, there's a little vent hose, as so. Well, the 87 tank has a much bigger opening here. So hose, no good. So I'm not sure I'm going to fix this yet. I'm probably just going to make a little adapter and cut it halfway up the line. But either way, I had to order, this is 1 3/4 hose. And the filler neck is 1 3/8. So I had to order the bigger hose anyway, so I'm just going to wait on it, and then once it's here, I'll figure it out one way or the other. But I guess I'll work on some other stuff for now. I figure I'll just throw some of the accessories on here. There is the bracket set that came with the motor. Power steering pump's on it. It's a non-hydro boost pump because it only has an outlet and a return. The trucks with the Hydro Boost, and that's the hydraulic assisted brakes instead of vacuum assist, will have another return port. It's not that big of a deal. You can get the right pump, or you can just change the tanks. You can block it off, whatever floats your boat. And here is the pump off the truck. So what I'm hoping to do, and it should work, is I should just be able to pop this fitting out of the back, which just goes to flare, which is what the truck used. The 73 truck just used like a 3/8 flare, like a brake line. And the LS pump uses a metric O-ring. Well, if I pop this fitting out of here, it should go into the pump on the LS one, and then I should be golden for the power steering, because the return hose just clamps on both. It's like there's not really any pressure in that anyway, so it's not real like precise how it has to go on there, so you can just use one of those compression hose clamps. Okay, here's the fitting from the LS pump. And you see it just kind of hollow in there, and that's because the line that goes in it has an O-ring on it, kind of like this does, and it seats inside like that. Here is the fitting off the pump from the 73. You see it has a little ball inside. That's because there's a flare line that goes into it. But as you can see, even though they're like 30 years different, it's the same like basic fitting. So you can swap the fittings instead of trying to make up some goofy conversion line like I've seen people do where they like weld the lines together, like your old lines, your new lines, or they change the steering box to a newer steering box. In a lot of cases, all you need to do is change this fitting if you have one of these GM power steering pumps. And that's actually what we did in the Winnebago too, because for some reason that Winnebago had a GM power steering pump on a Chrysler engine. Just change this fitting and the lines lined right up. Hopefully it'll be the same on this. I'm hoping the stock lines will go right into this pump. But there's a spring behind here and a little piston, and all you do is just thread it in, tighten it up, don't go nuts, and you should be good to go. Well, my theory worked out. The stock pressure hose, just kind of do kind of a loop-de-loop with it there, and it went right in the back of the pump. The stock return hose, I probably should have shown this before I cut it, but it went over here, like right next to that one, like right where that hole is, and I just couldn't get a good angle on it, and it was rusty and garbage. So I just went and bought a new return hose, which conveniently enough only has like this much metal on it, where the old one had like 8 inches. So I just tucked it up like this, and it goes right into the return pipe. So a nice short little like 8-inch section there. So with that, the power steering's done. It's probably one of the easiest things on this whole deal. Well, that's probably more than enough for one video. I have a feeling this is going to be either really long or really edited. I have to get that fuel filler hose in the correct size, then I can start putting the tank back in, and then I can start making all the fuel lines up to the motor. But it was kind of productive, at least, waiting. Got the power steering on, the water pump on, put a new thermostat on it. So I got something done. I just want to tackle all the under truck stuff first, because that's the most annoying stuff to do, being on the floor with no lift. So once I can get all that stuff done, then, you know, the rest is a lot, I don't know, feel better about working on it. So I'll have the new video up soon, hopefully.